Lisa, we got to talk about it. It's number 3 versus number 6. Washington Spirit versus North Carolina Courage. The winner will go on to play OL Reign in this one. This match is going to take place at Audi Field for the home side of the Spirit at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. This one you can catch on Paramount Plus. Lisa, we have to echo some similar scenarios here that we were doing with Chicago versus Gotham. You know, these two teams during their regular seasons had some battles of their own, but the Spirit, this team full of sort of this young core, right, going up against an experienced North Carolina side, a team that has always sort of been in the mix of NWSL playoffs and other various NWSL titles. They kind of played with them toe to toe, and they took away some results against this North Carolina Courage side. We got to chat a little bit with Aubrey Bledsoe, the goalkeeper of the Spirit. We got to chat a little bit with Lynn Williams of the North Carolina Courage. And again, just sort of echoing those same things. This is the playoffs. It's the reset button. Some of the regular season fixture stuff kind of goes out of the window. And I mean, geez, at one point during this final stretch, right, of the regular season, the Courage found themselves having to root for the Spirit in order to be able to clinch that final number 6 playoff seed spot. And so now here these two teams are going into the quarterfinal of the NWSL playoffs, and now they have to go head to head. It's the first time for North Carolina Courage, Lisa, the first time that they have gone into an NWSL playoff and they are not the number 1 seed. It'll be interesting to sort of see how they continue to navigate that. And then for the Spirit, this is their return. You know, they are not a team that are, you know, unfamiliar to an NWSL playoff, but it has been a little while. It's been since 2016. So the last time the Spirit were in the NWSL playoffs, and really the last time that they made a championship finals, the first and last time they made a championship finals appearance. I'm sorry, I think it's just the last time. I think they did it in 52, but you could feel free to stat check me on that. I don't mind that at all.
Sandra, we're allowed to make mistakes here. We're just human. It happens.
People, I mean, it's like you could do it. I don't really care. Let me know. It's exciting because when you take a look at those little bits of history, right? Courage with the more recent playoff experience, right? This Spirit team, not so much the same case, but not only that, they also don't have a ton of players who were part of that 2016 roster. I mean, we can maybe point them out, and it's Tori Huster, right? For Washington Spirit, and for North Carolina Courage, there have been a number of players who have been playing together as teammates who have gone on to these sort of knockout scenarios and aren't unfamiliar with having that sort of playoff pressure. But they're going on the road. And they're going to the DC area. And this playing at Audi Field is not a place where they've had a ton of success against this Spirit side. And while we're talking about recent form, we got to maybe give that little bit advantage to the Spirit, I think, right? Don't we, Lisa, in this one?
Yes, I think so. I mean, these two squads between Washington and North Carolina, number 3 versus number 6, which is a different look for the Courage. As you said, Sandra, they're usually number 1. They're usually top dogs coming into it. And really the irony that North Carolina Courage, and Lynn spoke about this in our interview with her. Go check it out if you haven't. It's on our YouTube page. It's fantastic that in the airport, Lynn and all of her Courage teammates were sitting there watching the Washington-Houston game and cheering for Washington, cheering for them to score goals. She was like, when Trinity Rodman scored that goal, we went nuts. We were celebrating. That's hilarious, because then come a week later, in just a week's time, you now have to play against that competition. I mean, I guess they all scouted Washington pretty well because they watched that game against Houston, and they were cheering for those moments when they did get the ball and do well. So you know how Washington can attack. But let's take a trip down memory lane for these two squads. July 10th, Washington beat North Carolina Courage 2-0. Ashley Hatch, she had a brace in that game. So that was when we started to see the magic of Ashley Hatch really coming into form. August 29th, it was a 0-0 draw. So no one in that match coming away with the win. And then October 13th, Washington coming away with another win, 2-1. Goals from Trinity Rodman in the 39th minute And Speck for Courage got one in the 60th minute. And then Rodder closed out the scoring for Washington in the 70th minute. So Courage did come back in their most recent match early in October. After Washington scored first, the Courage were able to get on the board, which I think says something a little bit, because it's hard to come from behind and score goals and do all of that hard work. When we look at the team of Washington Spirit and what they have, Ashley Hatch, she scored a brace against this team and she became the Golden Boot winner of this regular season. But Washington is on a 6-game unbeaten streak. And in their last 4 games, 3 of them had multiple goals in them. So the Spirit is not just scoring goals and winning games or going unbeaten, but they're also scoring multiple goals in a game, which is huge, especially against a game, against a team like North Carolina Courage that hasn't really scored a lot of goals this year. When we're speaking historically, North Carolina has been a team that is very offensive minded. They score 4 or 5 goals a game, 3, 4, 5 goals a game. They let up 1 or 2, but it doesn't matter because they're putting up 20 some shots a game and 4 of them are finding the back of the net. This season, not so much. They're only putting up about 7, 8, 9 shots a game. And even then, they're only getting 1 on the board. So defensively, North Carolina has had to rely a lot on their defensive abilities this year, which is something they're not really used to. Sticking with Washington a little bit here, 4 shutouts in their last 5 games. I think that is a huge stat, especially against a North Carolina Courage team that hasn't been putting up as many goals as they would have liked to this season. This matchup, I'm so excited for, because looking at lineups in the back line and knowing that Washington's back line has faced a little bit of injury and a little bit of players coming in and out and rotating around, and Andi Sullivan being a little bit injured, who plays that defensive midfield position for Washington Spirit. She needs to be 100% in this match against North Carolina. She does. There can be no ifs, ands, and buts about it. If she's a little bit nicked up, she has to play through that. In my mind, I don't know if she is. I don't know what's happening there, but you have to play through that and you have to help your team get this win. You talked about the playoff experience for Washington. I think being players that don't know what it's like to be in the playoffs and really kind of having this monkey on their back based off everything that has happened off the field this season, and really trying hard to separate that from what's been done on the pitch. Heading into these playoffs, they don't know what it's going to be like. I think that helps them, honestly. I think for Ashley Hatch and Ashley Sanchez and Trinity Rodman, they're forwards up top who just need to score goals. I mean, I make it sound so simple, but that's all they need to do. That's all they need to focus on right now. And I think that when you come into a playoff match like this against Courage, a team that is really good and really strong, they can be dominant in their attacking presence in what they need to do. So this is going to be a fun matchup. I don't think it'll be as tight as the Chicago game, Chicago versus Gotham. I really don't. I think it'll be a little bit more spread out and even, but I mean, we'll have to wait until Sunday to see. But that's my take on Washington and what they have to do. It needs to be a big game from Andi Sullivan, and they need to use their speed and their strength and their intelligence and their soccer smarts in the attacking end to be creative and get shots on goal.
No, I'm with you on so much of that. I think you look at Washington Spirit right now, and you take a step back and look at them as a whole through the regular season, and they absolutely have one of the most exciting front lines right now. They've got young, likely candidate, rookie of the year candidate in Trinity Rodman, Ashley Sanchez, who's having no sophomore slump at all, absolutely contributing in that attacking third. And you've got Ashley Hatch, who walked away with 10 goals this year in Golden Boot honors. I don't think you look at that and say that that's anyone on that front line is a slouch. But it's exciting for sure. And I think when you sort of compare those front lines, I think maybe based on form and recent form, you give that edge a little bit to the Spirit. But I think I don't know. I think that we're not maybe talking enough about. I do agree with you that this could be the game that's going to have the goals, which is a little contradictory into what I'm actually just going to say. But because of a phase that I think we're actually not touching on a little bit, and I'm not really seeing a lot of others maybe touching on, is that this actually could also maybe turn into like a real goalkeeper battle as well. I'm loving the individual goalkeeper matchup that is going to take place that we could possibly witness in this quarterfinal. You've got Casey Murphy in net for North Carolina Courage, and they've got Aubrey Bledsoe in net for Washington Spirit. Bledsoe, who we were so thankful to have on short notice on the show ahead of the playoffs to talk a little bit about that. But 11 clean sheets for Casey Murphy for North Carolina Courage. I mean, and here they are finding themselves not as a number one seed, but in the playoffs. Aubrey Bledsoe with 8 clean sheets of her own. And honestly, for Bledsoe as well, just to sort of hone in on her a little bit, a part of that attack. We've actually seen some really fun team goals out of this Spirit side, which is the other part of the attack. It's like we're seeing, yes, there's been some exciting quick finishing that has happened from these front three, but there've been a lot of moments where there's been some good buildup, and Aubrey Bledsoe and the back line are part of that at times when they're able to have possession and retain possession and be able to sort of play through that possession. Bledsoe is a goalkeeper that's got over 80% of a success rate on her passes, and that's gonna come into play if the Spirit are going to stick with this this position based style that we have seen them sort of walk through and navigate through the regular season. But that is going to be an angle that I'm actually really excited to see. I'm absolutely excited to see these two goalkeepers sort of tape up the gloves, get on out there, and sort of maybe come up with some highlights in this quarterfinal. I would not be shocked if the goals do eventually come in this game, but perhaps they come a little later, because I do think that each of these goalkeepers will get tested in this match for sure. So let's do this, Lisa. Same scenarios as we were closing out that Gotham and Chicago game. Let's do the same to close it out here for the Spirit and for North Carolina Courage. Give me 3 players across each of the lines, whichever team that you think has to have a lights out kind of game or a big performance in the quarterfinal.
So defensively, I'm going to go with Casey Murphy in goal for North Carolina. I'm just throwing her in that back line. She is a defender, and she is the last line of defense for the Courage. And you touched on it being a goalkeeper battle. And honestly, this will come down to a goalkeeper battle. She's going to have a lot of different style shots to stop against Washington when it comes to breakaways, when it comes to long distance shots from their midfield, when it comes to crosses into the box and Ashley Hatch trying to get her head on the end of the ball. It'll be a lot of different things coming at Casey Murphy, but she's going to be the player that steps up big and does those things. In the midfield, Andi Sullivan, I said it a little bit earlier, she needs to be on 100%, 90 minutes of this game, no mental lapses, defensively breaking up plays, and then immediately turning that defense into offense, springing her teammates wider, using up the entire space of the field, also combining in the attack. That's the beauty of a midfielder. And then up top, I'm honestly going to go with Jess McDonald. I'm going to key in on her a little bit because I don't want to talk about the normal forwards in Rodman and Hatch and Williams, Sanchez. I want to focus on Jess McDonald because she's a player that does so much work off the ball defensively. And that's what she needs to do in this matchup against Washington. So it's more so what she does off the ball and then winning it back, springing at Lynn Williams forward and combining with Williams up top. But Jess McDonald, Andi Sullivan, and Casey Murphy for me are my 3 players.
I love that a lot. I think I'm gonna echo similarly. I think for defensive side, I am looking at the goalkeeper, but I'll go with Aubrey Bledsoe in this one for all of the 4 reasons that we mentioned already. In the midfield, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go North Carolina. I think Debhina has to have a big game for this North Carolina Courage side. Again, we're talking about the things that these players have been going through, and really, that's another thing that we have to touch on a little bit right now, and I'm doing it right now, is that both of these teams have had to deal with off the field things throughout this entire season, and that has at times, perhaps affected their play on the pitch. The players have gone on record so much and saying as much that it has. So here they are in the playoffs. Hopefully this can be a bit of joy for both of these teams, and somebody like Debhina absolutely is the key to that midfield without somebody like a Sam Mewis in tow. So she's going to have a big one and be recovering on defense when she has to, and involved in the attack and setting up playmaking for North Carolina. And for the front line, I am going to go with one of the big three of the Spirit, but I'm going to go with Trinity Rodman. This is going to be her first playoff in a professional capacity. Everybody is speaking about this player as a lock for rookie of the year, and she had a very impressive season in front of her. But there have been times this year where we have seen this young player get easily frustrated on the pitch, and there's nothing like a pressure cooker when it comes to a playoff scenario. So I think she is going to have a challenge in front of her. And I think that she has to show, that's the thing that she has to show, that she's like, yes, I'm rookie of the year. Watch me ball out and not feel the pressure in this type of match. So that's who I'm going for. In terms of pick, you went first, Lisa. I'm going first this time. I'm going to go with the Spirit on this one. I do believe they've got the full package. They can get things done in 90 minutes against North Carolina Courage. I think it's going to end 2-1. I'm going Spirit. How about you?
Oh, 2-1. You even gave us a score line. I honestly think the Spirit as well. I do. I know for the sake of the podcast, maybe I should go with Courage, but I have to stick with my gut, and I want to be right at the end of all of this. So I'm going to go with Washington Spirit to win this one too. I think they just have a little bit more momentum at this point in the season, and North Carolina just doesn't. They barely squeaked into the playoffs as it was.